full-time roles offer a 4.5-day work week, along with flexible internships in most areas. Career and internship opportunities are available at our global headquarters in Lincoln, Nebraska. Find your fit today at www.sandhills.jobs.
Weekly rap sessions with All-American quarterback Steve Taylor, Nebraska Football Hall of Famer.
Blitz is on. Taylor picks it up. Fires. Touchdown, Nebraska.
Canadian Football League Grey Cup champion.
Taylor again, wide open.
First team All-American quarterback Steve Taylor.
5 for Steve Taylor. That is a new Nebraska record.
Welcome into weekly rap sessions with All-American quarterback Steve Taylor. And Steve is going to do something a little bit special this summer, which is have former Husker athletes on from week to week, different guests. Last week, Megan Walker jumped in, of course, current Nebraska athlete. And today, we're welcoming back one of Steve's former teammate, Keith Endzone Jones, one of the best nicknames, of course, in Husker football history, one of the best nicknames altogether in football history. Keith is joining us on the Allo VIP line, Allo Fiber VIP line. Keith, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
Oh, not too bad. It's good to hear from you. Of course, for those that don't know, Keith Endzone Jones played on Nebraska from 1984 to 1987, coming out of the great state of Nebraska, coming out of Omaha, where you played at Omaha Central, ended up replacing two-time All-Big 8 running back Doug DeBose in 1986, and then led the conference, the Big 8, in rushing yards and touchdowns before a stellar senior season that included out-dueling Barry Sanders in his historic year, and plenty more accomplishments in your senior season. We'll get to all of that, but first, we just want to know, we'll get to kind of know the story of Keith Endzone Jones, how he got to Nebraska, everything that kind of went through that. But first, we want to know what you're up to today in today's world. Keith, what does Keith Endzone Jones do these days? Spend too much time on the gridiron still?
Wow, that's a loaded question. I'm considered retired now, and my wife and I have a son in Lincoln that works in Lincoln, 25-year-old. I got another son, just finished up his freshman year in Lincoln, and 2 daughters heading into high school. They'll be 14 next week and be heading into high school at Westview High School next fall. So got my hands full. Just doing the dad thing, and that's pretty much what my life consists of these days. I got kind of started late, a little bit later in life with the kids and all that, but I'm enjoying it, having the ball.
Yeah, very cool stuff. There's no more important job in the world than being a dad, or a mother, I suppose, could argue that as well. But absolutely, that's great stuff. Great to hear. Of things going on there. Now let's go back and jump back in time to when you were at Omaha Central. You had quite a historic year, or I should say, a couple years there as a high school baller. When did Nebraska kind of pop up on the radar for you?
I would say they popped up on the radar for me my junior year in high school. At the time, they were actually recruiting my brother Lee, who was a year ahead of me. Went to Benson High School, defensive lineman. So they were recruiting him, and of course, Coach Osborne and at the time Cletus Fisher, would visit the home, and of course, me being the younger brother would kind of nose in and kind of stick my head in to see kind of how this whole thing was going and how it worked, and so I would say they came on my radar my junior year. And then, of course, my senior year, I had a better understanding of kind of how things worked. And because they recruited my brother Lee. And so I had a pretty good feel for how Nebraska kind of recruited and kind of what their process was.
Oh, very interesting. I know too, especially. I mean, you had a breakout senior season, 1,710 yards, 18 touchdowns as a senior at Omaha Central, which is breaking records set by Gale Sayers. So I mean, that's that's a pretty darn good running back school for one, but another records to be breaking. Did your recruiting process somewhat blow up your senior year? I mean, did you get a lot of offers?
Yeah. At my senior year, besides Nebraska, but I won't list all the different schools, but let's say it came down to Nebraska and Washington, the Washington Huskies, came down to those two teams. And being here at home and kind of really understanding the Nebraska football program, once that decision was made, I mean, there was no looking back. I pretty much knew where I wanted to play, and I would say that my freshman year at Nebraska, though, the Washington Huskies actually won the national championship. So of course, I thought, well, wow, I could have maybe won a national championship my freshman year if I would have went there. But with all that said, I knew that I would be a Husker. Because at that time Nebraska was on the map and was actually competing themselves for national championship contention.
Absolutely. That's interesting too, because I know Steve Taylor also says that if it wasn't Nebraska, it might have been Washington. You guys ended up being a pretty good group here for Nebraska.
How ironic would that have been?
Yeah. Huh? Huskies fans, if they're listening or kind of wondering what a alternate reality may have looked like if maybe they were able to pull you guys in. All right, well, let's continue talking kind of about your high school days there too, because you mentioned your brother Lee. How much did he and his commitment to Nebraska factor in? I know you said you wanted to stay close to home. How cool was it to be able to commit and play with your brother?
Oh, it was amazing. Of course, when I finally decided I was coming. In my freshman year, we were roommates, of course. So it was like being at home, of course. And so, him being here a year in Lincoln before I got there, he was able to kind of show me the ropes and what to expect, especially during practice and that sort of thing. So I was able to kind of adjust, I thought, pretty smoothly. And it always helps when you have somebody that's been through it and that can kind of tell you what to expect.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I know, and like with your name, and again, especially your nickname, you're very well known in Husker history. For me, a little bit of a younger Husker fan. I was not quite alive for your days. What was the career of Lee Jones? What did that look like?
Well, Lee was playing. He was a defender, defensive end, and he actually redshirted his after his freshman year. So when he redshirted, that actually put us at the same year as far as our eligibility, because I didn't redshirt. So that put us in equal class. But he actually contributed on the defensive side of the ball. He was on that defensive line with I think Danny Noonan, Neil Smith, Broderick Thomas, Lawrence Pete, just to name a few guys during his time there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a good name dropping session there. Those are some impressive players that you mentioned. And just because we talk about it, what kind of went into your decision? I know a lot of it's kind of rare. Maybe less rare these days, but especially rare back then to not redshirt. What went into your decision not to redshirt?
Well, I was thinking about that because I thought that may be a question you would ask me. and when I look back now, I kind of wish I would have redshirted, and here's why. I think during that time I didn't quite understand the importance of experience and maturity during that time. And that's what that red shirt year allows you to do. It allows you gain some experience, and most likely in practice, work ethic, that sort of thing. And then give you another year to kind of mature as a young man. But that's one thing I wish I would have done. But the deciding factor for me was, I recall, whether it was Coach Solich or Coach Osborne at the time, when it came down to making the decision, I just recall them telling me that we need the depth. So going into that season, we had Jeff Smith, who would have been a senior that year. Doug DeBose was coming out of a redshirt year. And so Doug would have been, I believe, a sophomore during that time. And then I know Paul Miles would have been a junior, I believe. And so because they had mentioned to me that they needed the depth, more depth at the position, to me that was saying, okay, well, they want me to play as opposed to redshirt. So I decided to go ahead and pass that redshirt year up.
Yeah, well, that makes sense, especially with the coaches. Admitting there would be some playing time for it, and you did. You did get a few carries that year. Was 31 carries, 186 yards, and 2 touchdowns for you in your freshman year. We'll talk a little bit about Doug DeBose, but let me ask you about that running back room, because you mentioned just some of the names there. Was it a competitive room as far as trying to get on the field, or was there a lot of mentorship going on early in your career?
Very competitive. And when I was at Nebraska, and I know years after when I was there, one of the things Nebraska did, and they did very well, was made sure they recruited and brung in the best. And with that came the competition to compete. You were always going to be in a position where you were going to be competing. And that's, to me, what made Nebraska position by position as consistent and as good as we were back then. And for me as an athlete, I always loved being in the position of chasing. And what I mean by chasing is I had guys in front of me that I felt had the bar set. So as long as I can always chase them and kind of meet that bar that they were setting, I felt like I was going to be improving as a player. And so that was always a competitive running back room. We helped each other out. We supported each other, but at the same time, we realized it was competition, and I want what you got, and guys knew it. We all knew that. We knew that next guy was always going to be ready to either step in and take our place on any given week.
Well, it's interesting, too, because as opposed to nowadays where the transfer portal is so prevalent and the NCAA is doing everything for player mobility, and so you can transfer in and out. And I know you've had some really good running back rooms over the years at Nebraska. We've seen some really good running back rooms in at Georgia or different places over the last several years, Wisconsin certainly. Do you think that it's going to be harder and harder to see those type of backfields just with the transfer portal era?
Absolutely, it's going to be tougher. It's when you talk of depth. I think now with most teams you may go as deep as two guys that could probably not be much of a drop off with most teams, because now because kids do have the ability to go to a different school, that affects, I think, the depth of any and almost every collegiate football team. Back when I was playing, guys knew that either they could take a redshirt year, and from a competitive standpoint, your turn was going to come. But now guys aren't really waiting on their turn to come. They want to play now, And the landscape has been laid out for them now where they can, up and move and go somewhere else and play. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. I think it gives players that flexibility and gives them a chance to, take their talents and their ability to somewhere where they can maybe play a little bit quicker than waiting around for 2, sometimes even 3 years.
Sure. We are speaking with Keith Endzone Jones here on Weekly Wrap Sessions with All-American quarterback Steve Taylor. Steve has a plan moving forward for the summer to have former Husker athletes, maybe even current Husker athletes on and talk a little bit about their careers and aspirations moving forward as well. With Keith Endzone Jones here, we've talked a little bit about kind of his early years at Nebraska. We'll start to get into the thick of things when he started to get more playing time into his sophomore, certainly into his junior and senior season. So we'll take a quick break. We'll be back with Keith Endzone Jones on the other side of the break here on Weekly Wrap Sessions with All-American quarterback Steve Taylor coming up next.
Put lawn irrigation on automatic. Think Judson Irrigation for worry-free service to Lincoln homeowners and business community. Judson Irrigation will turn on your sprinkler system in the spring, repair or redesign as needed, and turn it off in the fall. For service to orphan sprinklers, remember Judson Irrigation. They'll never forget you.
Call the Judson Irrigation Orphanage 402-420-6277 or judsonirrigation.com.
Wall to Wall Wine and Spirits is your place in North Lincoln to go for all your needs in wine, spirits, and beer. They also have a large variety of cigars in their walk-in humidor, and they have a top-notch walk-in, temperature-controlled, high-end wine bar. Plus, you can enjoy free samples from their tasting book. There's only one place to go for all your needs for wine, beer, spirits, and cigars. Wall to Wall Wine and Spirits on North 27th Street in Lincoln.
Hey there, fellas. It's your girl Jordan with Sartor Hamann Jewelry, here to drop some knowledge bombs on how to wow your woman. Size matters, but not the way you're thinking, guys. Make sure you know her ring size before you even think about popping the question. If you aren't a surprise kind of guy, ask her. I bet she knows her size. If you are a surprise kind of guy, bring in a piece and we can get close to the right size. We will make it perfect for her when the time is right. Until next time, this is Jordan at Sartor Hamann Jewelry. Happy shopping, guys.
93.7 The Ticket, Fox, KFXL weather. Sponsored by John Henry's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning.
Your Lincoln forecast for today, we'll see mainly sunny skies. It'll be breezy and hot. An afternoon high around 89. Tonight, a stray shower or storm possible. Otherwise, clear skies. No that low around 57. And tomorrow, sunny skies. An afternoon high around 82. I'm meteorologist Kyle Klecker for 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
24/7 threat monitoring, expert tech support, streamlined communications. Allo has a solution for that. Protect your business with Allo Business. Comprehensive firewall security, Microsoft Teams voice-integrated communications, cybersecurity and IT support managed by experts. From productivity to peace of mind, Allo has a solution for that. Allo means business. Protect your business by visiting allofiber.com/business.
Plains Cover Crop is your one-stop seed shop. Call us now for spring and summer forages, CRP mixes, and fall cover crop blends. We do farm-specific consulting for practical and efficient seed blends to fit your geography and goals. With a very diverse inventory, we will tailor a blend just for you. We're also looking for contract growers, and we buy and sell rye. Find us online at plainscovercrop.com. Timeless agronomy practices paired with modern technology. East Highway 20 in Orchard and across Nebraska.
I'm Karen Carr. I've been a realtor for 31 years. When I made a company change 12 years ago, I chose Lincoln First Realty, now NP Dodge. It's the oldest independently owned realty company in the country. Since becoming NP Dodge, we've continued our tradition of community involvement. Our management and staff are always available to offer support in marketing, technology, social media, and educational opportunities.
Expand your career with NP Dodge. Call Eric at 402-434-2222.
Rashawn Jackson here for Bauer Infrastructure, a veteran-owned local company proudly serving Lincoln, Lancaster County, and the surrounding areas. Bauer provides quality work at an affordable price, and they're growing rapidly. If you want to experience a career with a fast-paced, family-friendly environment, visit BauerInfrastructure.com. They have top-of-the-line benefits, year-round work, even through the winter. Bauer, usher in the new era of infrastructure to an area near you. And as always, go Big Red!
Ooh, what a day. I could sure use an afternoon pick-me-up. Hold up, the new 93.7 The Ticket location has a milk, coffee, and tea inside? Oh yeah, this is a game changer. Need an afternoon pick-me-up? How about a coffee or smoothie on your way to work? Stop by the Ticket Mill location on 1040 O Street to get your go-to drink or try out our new game day drinks, exclusive to the Ticket Mill location. We know it'll make your day a million times better.
At Union Bank, people don't have your money. Your money has people. First home people, investment people, people who answer the phone and your chats, dream car people, dream retirement people, driving your dream car in your dream retirement people, small business people, credit card people, and all the other people you need. At Union Bank, our people help you do more than you dreamed possible. So stop in and say hello. We can't wait to see you. Union Bank and Trust, member FDIC.
At Southeast Community College, community is our middle name. Our continuing education classes offer personal interest, traffic safety and licensing, online learning, and adult education classes across Southeast Nebraska, or online in your own home. Learn to ride a motorcycle, how to start a small business, how to dance, or take a course to advance in your current career path. See the full schedule of continuing education classes online at southeast.edu/continuing. SCC, your path to possible.
93.7 The Ticket is proud to provide listeners with daily opportunities to win contests and prizes on our airwaves, and would like to take this opportunity to remind you of a couple rules. All participants must be 21 or older and must wait 30 days after winning a prize before participating in another contest. Once you win, you have 30 days to pick up your prize at the K&TK Studios, 1040 O Street in Lincoln, or your prize will be forfeit. Thank you for participating in our contest, and thank you for listening to 93.7 The Ticket.
Now back to weekly rap sessions with All-American quarterback Steve Taylor on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
I am Jake Bachman in studio here on 93.7 The Ticket. Steve Taylor is out today, but he's making room for a former teammate of his, a backfield mate, in Keith Endzone Jones. We've talked with Keith a little bit about the early part of his career, but we did skip over a step. I forgot to ask you, Keith, how did you get the nickname Endzone? It seems that maybe in hindsight would be pretty obvious because you spent so much time there, but was it? Is that the reason behind it? You just spent so much time in the end zone?
Well, we got to go back to high school. My senior year in high school is when my teammates, a couple of my teammates, were teasing around and trying to come up with a nickname for me. And yes, because of the touchdowns, one of the guys were clever enough to say Endzone Jones. So it stuck. You know, I liked it, and it stuck, and it's interesting because even to the day, that's how most people know me, is by Endzone Jones, and even more ironically, when you look me up on Wikipedia, when you look up Keith Jones, it pulls up another gentleman who played football, also played for the University of Illinois. He actually played in the NFL for a few years also. And so it pulls him up. And I found out that if you want to look me up and get my information on Wikipedia, you have to put in Keith Endzone Jones. So for those out there who try to look me up, you got to put in Keith Endzone Jones in order to find out anything about my history and credentials, I guess. So,
well, fair enough. That's a good. It's good to get a nickname that sticks with you. Among your family and friends, did it stick too? I mean, it's always kind of weird because I have a nickname here at work too, and then I go home, and if my wife calls me by my nickname, it almost bothers me a little bit. Do you have the same type of feeling?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of my old teammates and some of my newer friends, that's what they call me. But instead of end zone, a lot of times they call me EZ for short. And that's what a lot of them call me EZ. So.
Well, fair enough. That works out as well. We went through your kind of high school year, your decision not to redshirt in 1984. 1985, you had 38 carries on 240 yards total, 138 of those coming in against Iowa State and Kansas there. And then the other thing that I thought was interesting, yet the first kickoff return touchdown in 5 years for the Huskers against Kansas, and then 98-yarder for a touchdown. Was that something they kept you doing once you got more of a prominent role as the feature I-back, or was that kind of something that you did just earlier in your career?
Well, it was more earlier in my career. Since I didn't redshirt, they just wanted to make sure I was, getting some ample enough time, at least to be on the field, and doing special teams gave me that opportunity.
Now let's jump forward to and by the way, all these years as we go through, now that we get more into your playing years, I'll more specifically kind of go into it. But obviously, you came into Nebraska at a time where they were just coming off close to the national championship in 1983, and all these years, as opposed to the current years, Nebraska was in there fighting for that. I wanted to ask you about this just in general, because I know Oklahoma was just kind of a thorn in your side, in Tom Osborne's side, throughout that time in your career. Before we get specifically into the game in your junior and senior seasons, Nebraska now kind of has this rivalry with Iowa, and it's just hard to replicate what the Nebraska-Oklahoma rivalry was, because, these Nebraska-Iowa games, they might battle for going to a bowl game or maybe to represent the Big Ten West or something like that. Back then, the Nebraska-Oklahoma rivalry was to go to the Orange Bowl, to go to the national championship. What were those games like with the Sooners?
Yeah. There's no comparison with the Nebraska-Iowa game each season. Back then, historically, you're looking at the Big 8 conference, and generally it was Nebraska and Oklahoma. And like you said, those games always came down to national contention, playing to go to the Orange Bowl to play for a national championship. So, and like you said, during those years, especially, even my freshman, all 4 of my years, that game came down, to had a lot of implications on those games. And it may have been one year where Oklahoma kind of handled us pretty easily at Oklahoma. But other than that, the other games were always competitive, and were always a lot of stakes during that game.
Yeah, again, I mean, most of the time your career in Nebraska was a top 10 team, even rising to number 1 several times. So it's a bit of a different feeling than what it is here now today, and hopefully Nebraska can get back to that. But I did want to ask you about 1986. You're going into that your junior season. Doug DuBose has been on a roll, and then before the season happens, he gets a season-ending injury. Of course, everybody on the team must have been thinking, okay, next man up, and that was you. So what was kind of the feeling through that offseason and entering that first game against Florida State, where it's okay, I've been a piece of the team, now I'm a featured piece?
Well, it was, it was a shocker to the team. It was disappointing. That year, Doug was one of the leading Heisman candidates. And I mentioned earlier that I always enjoyed being in a position where I was chasing someone. And Doug had a standard, and he had set that bar, pretty high. So going into that season, I was actually looking forward to continuing to learn from him, to compete with him, and to really have kind of like that 1-2 punch against our opponents going into that season. And unfortunately, when he went down, the whole outlook changed. The whole perspective of what my role was going to be changed, and it was next man up. It really was. That did hurt some of the depth at that time, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, going into that season, Ken Clark had decided to redshirt that year, and I think he would have been a backup with the depth. But because, Doug going into that season was going to be the man, and then me backing him up, Ken made a strategic move to redshirt. And unfortunately, Doug got injured. The outlook on the season, slightly changed because one of our, strong leaders, weren't going to be on the field with us. But I think going into that season, we were still confident. It still ranked pretty high going into that season, and played well throughout that season. And unfortunately, we mentioned Oklahoma earlier. Ran into Oklahoma at the end of that season and lost that game. And so that was left a bad taste in my mouth because we were unable to, accomplish some of the things that we had set out to accomplish that season, with Doug DuBose being one of our leaders.
I'm just looking through your bio. I mean, that Oklahoma team, it says that you ran, had a 2-yard touchdown against the Sooners. That was the only one they allowed, only rushing touchdown they allowed in 1986. Also was the only first quarter score against Oklahoma that season. So, I mean, Oklahoma just had a heck of a teams there. And it was kind of funny too, because I was reading through your bio and realized that South Carolina is kind of the same way. These were very tough, and Nebraska had a home and away with South Carolina at the time. These were very tough rush defenses going in. In those bigger games with those rush defenses, did you pay too much attention to the numbers? I mean, because you talk about that Oklahoma number. I mean, these are some. I mean, that's got to be a little bit frightening, I suppose, to the stand. The guy in the crowd watching, like, man, I'm going to get this rush game going. But for you on the field, you see those rush defensive numbers. What were you licking your chops to go prove them wrong?
Well, it's one of the things that Coach Osborne and his coaching staff, they always did a great job of scouting and putting the game plan together and getting us ready as a team, knowing what the other team's strengths were and what their weaknesses were. And that's how we attack teams. They were amazing defensively, both your South Carolina teams, your Oklahoma teams, and, I would be remiss to not mention UCLA. My junior year, and then after I left, Nebraska played them out there at UCLA. But those were tremendous defensive teams. And so our offenses were always tested when we played against those teams. And some of the memories, not so great when it came down to how the outcome of the games, especially against Oklahoma when we would lose that game. But in retrospect, when you look at how well put together those Oklahoma defensive teams were, when you look at the number of All-Americans they had, the number of first-round draft picks they had, the number of guys that played at the next level in NFL, that pretty much tells the story as to how good those defensive teams were.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll jump into 1987 too, but I think it's kind of interesting, as you mentioned that, just, how close you guys were in 1987. Of course, there was that Oklahoma team that stood in your way, set up for a number 1 versus number 2. You guys obviously started the year number 2. There was a lot of expectations going in, but rose up to number 1 for that Oklahoma week, and ended up losing that game 17-7, and then just a 3-point loss in the Sugar Bowl, in the Fiesta Bowl against Florida State. That 87 team, of course, your senior season, we can go over your numbers here in a bit because they were spectacular, and it was kind of your breakout year, even more so than your junior year, which you already led the Big 8 in rushing and rushing touchdowns. How close do you feel that team was to a national title?
Oh my goodness, we were so close. And, the setback for us, of course, playing Oklahoma in Lincoln, my senior year, the game started out, with a bang. I think I scored on like a 21-yarder or something like that. And, their defense would bend, but it would never break. So we would move the ball offensively, but then they would just bow up defensively. And of course we would have to punt the ball, but we just could not get over the hump against those Oklahoma defensive teams then. And then you mentioned Florida State, that game we played them in the Fiesta Bowl, winning at halftime with the league. Matter of fact, led the majority of that game. And as I recall, I know going into the fourth quarter, I didn't play at all, I believe, going into the fourth quarter. We were up with the lead, and Coach Solich came down and just congratulated me on a good season, and just told me that, hey, we're going to let the younger guys take over. So yeah, I was able to take my pads off and kind of relax. And unfortunately, Florida made a comeback in that fourth quarter. And like you said, I think we ended up losing by a field goal or so.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's at the time, maybe it felt relieving, but that's in hindsight a little bit frustrating. You weren't able to carry it out and maybe get the win there. But it is interesting. You guys get to number one. You had some early season battles against UCLA and Arizona State. You struggled a little bit against UCLA. Did that deter you at all? I mean, because you came back, it didn't look that. I get a number of 200-yard rushing games afterwards. But what kind of went into the UCLA game and afterwards?
Well, that I'm glad you mentioned that game, because I learned a lot from that game. That was one of the few games in my collegiate career that I went into that game with a little slight different mindset. If you recall, some of the personnel on UCLA's team, one of the players that they had, running back by the name of Gaston Green. Gaston was a California boy. He had was having a really good season with UCLA. And as a matter of fact, I think Gaston may have been one of the Heisman candidates that year. And so going into that game, I personally, I wanted to outplay him. And I knew that the eyes were going to be on us. The eyes were going to be on him in that game. And I felt like this would be a great opportunity for me to kind of show my abilities and my talent. And that was one of the only games that I recall during my collegiate career where I went in with that mindset, which I think most athletes will tell you. It's great to be competitive, but it's another thing when you isolate yourself and say, I want to do this, that, or the other. And I think my perspective going into that game, my approach was completely off. And the game, my game showed that. It was frustrating because the UCLA had a great defense during that time. And they came to shut down the run, and that's exactly what they did during that game. I think if you look at the stats in that game, Steve Taylor broke a record for the number of touchdown passes he had, because what we had to do, we had to go to play action passes in order to be effective offensively. But that was a very frustrating game for me. I didn't play very well at all. And I recall that next week, before practice started, Coach Osborne called me to his office. And he said to me, I'm not sure what happened. He said, but it's unacceptable. And, I remember him saying, if we need to make some changes, we will. And I recall telling Coach, you know what? Nope, you don't have to worry about making any changes. I know what my approach was, and it was selfish, and it won't happen again. And I think that kind of projected me or propelled me from a mindset standpoint, preparing going forward for the rest of that season to go in with the right approach, the right team approach, and to play my role, and not to try to necessarily be the guy or be the man, but to play my role. And that's what I did. And the rest of the season actually turned out pretty good.
Yeah, that's interesting for context here. That was number 3 UCLA against number 2 Nebraska. So, that was a heavyweight match, and you guys didn't have much long to rest on that victory because you had number 12 Arizona State, and like you said, maybe changing that mindset. Had a big 62-yard run at the end of the game to set Nebraska up for the win, to pair your 145 yards total on 17 carries in that game. So, that's a heck of a performance. You had a few 200-yard rushing games later in the year, maybe to outshine that a little bit, but just to kind of give us some context there. And then just with you saying that, I thought, was it tempting to kind of think of that? Because I was going to ask you about this, because when I talk about stacked running back rooms, you guys went up against Oklahoma State when they had Thurman Thomas and Barry Sanders. Was it hard not to get back into that mindset for that game?
Well, it wasn't hard because you learn your lesson and you understand that you got teammates, and our offense, especially with Steve at quarterback. I mean, we weren't just one-dimensional team. I mean, we had the ability to run it, to throw it. And we were very effective that way. And so, going into that Oklahoma State game, playing against Oklahoma, of course, you recognize, Thurman Thomas, who had a stellar career, Barry, Hall of Famer, great collegiate Heisman Trophy winner. I mean, so, it was just fun competing. And knowing that within the Big 8 conference at that time, that the talent that was in the conference at the time, and the respect that you have for other players. I mean, I just spoke to Barry, I'd say maybe a little bit over a year ago. He and Johnny was at a Heisman deal, and Johnny put him on the phone, so we had a chance to chat for a minute. And it's just the level of respect that you gain from some guys when they're in college, and then when you go off to the NFL and play a little bit, you have friendships and relationships that definitely last a lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's take a quick break. We've got one more segment with Keith Endzone Jones, Nebraska running back from 1984 to 1987. We've made it most of the way through his career. Still want to ask a little bit about that senior season, and most importantly, what it was like to play with Steve Taylor, of course, who is the namesake of the show. You're listening to Weekly Wrap Sessions with All-American quarterback Steve Taylor. We'll be back after the break.
I'm Karen Carr. I've been a realtor for 31 years. When I made a company change 12 years ago, I chose Lincoln First Realty, now NP Dodge. It's the oldest independently owned realty company in the country. Since becoming NP Dodge, we've continued our tradition of community involvement. Our management and staff are always available to offer support in marketing, technology, social media, and educational opportunities.
Expand your career with NP Dodge. Call Eric at 402-434-2222.
Spring in Nebraska brings green grass and warmer weather, but it also brings severe storms which can cause damage to your home. Meadowlark Exterior specializes in hail, storm, and wind damage restoration, as well as roofing, siding, and gutters for commercial or residential buildings. Meadowlark Exteriors focuses on fine craftsmanship and proves that in their attention to detail. They offer free roof inspections and estimates and insurance claim assistance, serving the Lincoln and Omaha surrounding areas. Call today at 402-875-2956 or go to meadowlarkexteriors.com.
Hey kids, what are you getting your ever-loving dad for Father's Day?
I know, a motorized monster truck. How about the new Taylor Swift album? You would love it.
Yeah, I'm sure. How about something from Osted's Golf? Name brand apparel up to 50% off. Strixon balls at crazy deals. And Dad's always loving Osted's gift card.
You have been putting a lot of balls in the water.
Not after my custom fitting. I'm smashing everything.
You're good at that with a monster truck.
Shop Osted's Golf for Father's Day.
The Osted family would really appreciate it.
Plains Cover Crop is your one-stop seed shop. Call us now for spring and summer forages, CRP mixes, and fall cover crop blends. We do farm-specific consulting for practical and efficient seed blends to fit your geography and goals. With a very diverse inventory, we will tailor a blend just for you. We're also looking for contract growers, and we buy and sell rye. Find us online at plainscovercrop.com. Timeless agronomy practices paired with modern technology. East Highway 20 in Orchard and across Nebraska.
Gaina Trucking is hiring for heavy equipment operators and a heavy equipment mechanic. Working at Gaina Trucking is a great career with excellent team culture, with benefits package including competitive pay based on experience, health, vision, and dental insurance, and a 401k plan. If you're looking for a new job as a heavy equipment operator or mechanic, apply online at GainaTrucking.com or call 402-794-5000. Start your career today at Dana Trucking.
Sandhills Global is hiring. With their fast-paced, growing culture, they have hundreds of new openings in sales, marketing, traveling support, software development, web design, and more. Full-time roles offer a 4.5-day work week, along with flexible internships in most areas. Career and internship opportunities are available at our global headquarters in Lincoln, Nebraska. Find your fit today at www.sandhills.jobs.
If you're a homeowner or a business owner, you have a lot of projects, and no one has an unlimited budget or time. Sunbelt Rentals makes all jobs less stressful with no need to purchase large equipment or hire a crew. You can do it yourself with rentals in everything from aerators and power rakes for spring yard work to stump grinders, concrete mixers, tile saws, and more. Check out their inventory in Lincoln, north of Cornhusker Highway on 56th Street, or online at sunbeltrentals.com.
Hey, baseball fans, join the Blur Tailgate at Hilton Omaha this June for our 12th annual hospitality event during the College Baseball Championship Series. Book an experience for your clients or employees with an inclusive bar, buffet, TVs, music, and tailgate games. Secure your spot today and let Blur Events take care of all the work so you can enjoy the day. Plus, we're just steps away from Charles Schwab Field. Visit blurevents.com to book your group, buy tickets, or learn about sponsorships. That's blurevents.com, your college baseball and football tailgate destination.
At Union Bank, people don't have your money. Your money has people. First home people, investment people, people who answer the phone and your chats, dream car people, dream retirement people, driving your dream car in your dream retirement people, small business people, credit card people, and all the other people you need. At Union Bank, our people help you do more than you dreamed possible. So stop in and say hello. We can't wait to see you. Union Bank and Trust. Member FDIC.
Rashawn Jackson here for Bauer Infrastructure, a veteran-owned local company proudly serving Lincoln, Lancaster County, and the surrounding areas. Bauer provides quality work at an affordable price, and they're growing rapidly. If you want to experience a career with a fast-paced, family-friendly environment, visit BauerInfrastructure.com. They have top-of-the-line benefits, year-round work, even through the winter. Bauer, usher in the new era of infrastructure to an area near you. And as always, go Big Red!
If you've been putting off your health, what are you waiting for? The Summer 10-Week Challenge at Farrell's Extreme Body Shaping is exactly what you need to kickstart your wellness. Farrell's gives you all the tools, coaching, support, and accountability you need to be successful. The 10-week challenge begins on June 8th, and monthly payments are now available. Head to fxblincoln.com for all the details. Stop taking your health for granted and get started with Farrell's Extreme Body Shaping.
You never think cancer will happen to you. I smoked for over 40 years. My doctor recommended that I get annual lung cancer screening. They were able to catch my cancer at stage 1. It's never too late to quit. Even if you're still smoking, you need to ask your doctor about annual lung cancer screening. Just 30 minutes a year could save your life.
Call the Nebraska Tobacco Quit Line, 1-800-QUIT-NOW, 1-800-784-8669. Paid for by Tobacco Free Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Now back to weekly rap sessions with All-American quarterback Steve Taylor on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Jake Bachman back in studio with you here on 93.7 The Ticket with special guest Keith Endzone Jones. Notorious B.I.B. chimes in on the text line here, the Starter Heyman text line. Guys like Keith Endzone Jones should be on this show more often. So enjoying what we're hearing from you out there in the crowd as well, Keith. And we'll continue our conversation here. Steve is out today. Steve Taylor out today, but he was your running mate back there in the backfield. What was it like to play with Steve Taylor back with the Huskers in the 80s?
Oh man, Steve was my quarterback.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when Steve came in his freshman year, and we were doing summer workouts, and we were out in the field. He was throwing the ball around. And when I saw the tight spiral he was throwing and the velocity on the ball and we were just running and playing a little touch football and his moves. And I was like, okay, we got something special here. And, once the fall season started and when he got a chance to step on the field for the first time as a freshman and play some of his freshman year, I think the Husker fans got excited real quick because they knew they had at least four years of elite quarterback play. And I've always had a lot of respect for Steve. You know, as a young man coming in, he was mature. He understood the game. And I think Coach Osborne realized early on that he had a special player.
Yeah, Steve absolutely was special, and his time here at Nebraska was as well. Wanted to get to the end of your season as well, where you really started to rack up the numbers. 248 yards against Colorado near the end. Of course, 240 a couple weeks previously to that against Iowa State. Were things clicking a little bit more at that point in time? Did it feel that way, or was that maybe the competition you were playing, or what? When did those 240 yards is a lot?
Well, I think it was more of, you know, understanding my role, understanding, you know, as far as being one of the leaders on the team at the time offensively, just kind of, you know, playing your role. And most of the times when you do that and everyone is executing, guys are making their blocks, I mean, things become, you know, it may sound a little unusual, but it became a little easier. And you know, that was one of the reasons why I said early on that sometimes I wish I would have maybe redshirted, because I know from a fact, going through that experience now, as confident as I was my senior year and the experience that I had, imagine coming back having one more year of eligibility left and playing with Steve another year. I mean, I see nothing but continued high rankings and being more competitive. And I know Steve's senior year, they ended up beating Oklahoma, and they ended up going to the Orange Bowl, you know, that year. Yeah. I'm not sure what their in the season ranking was or who they played in the Orange Bowl that year, but it was just one of those scenarios, situations where, like, you know, I hit my stride, you know, my senior year, and things became a lot easier, and I was confident, and all the guys around me, and I'm sure my teammates were also confident in me. So, my overall experience at Nebraska was unforgettable. And when I ended my career at Nebraska, you mentioned those last few games that I had where, you know, the rushing yards were there. I think going into towards the end of my senior year, I would think I was like number maybe 10 or 11 going into those last few games, 10 or 11 ranked as far as all-time rushing. But by the time I finished my senior year, I ended up number 3 on the all-time rushing list, which when I look back on that, you know, that was quite the accomplishment, because I didn't think I would end up that high on the list of all-time rushers.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Especially, you know, with not only being able to play your junior and senior year majority, that is quite an impressive career. And Husker fans are forever grateful and thank you for choosing Lincoln, Nebraska in the Huskers to be your team. Before we finished it out, you did have a look into the pros. You did get picked in the 6th round with the Rams, ended up playing with Cleveland and Dallas. How was your experience in the NFL?
Oh, it was awesome. It was awesome because a lot of the guys I played against in college, I ended up being teammates with in the NFL. And you get a chance to talk to these guys and get to know these guys a little better and develop those relationships. And it's quite the experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine so. Once again, thank you for coming on. This is Weekly Wrap Sessions with All-American quarterback Steve Taylor, one of the greats at running back, Keith Endzone Jones, joining us for today. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. So one final thank you to Keith Endzone Jones for joining us today. And bother Steve. Try to come back on again at some point.
My pleasure. Let me know. Thank you.
All right. There he goes. Keith Endzone Jones, once again, one of the greatest to ever do it at IBEC for Nebraska. All right, that'll wrap it up for the show this week. We'll stay tuned. We'll try to let you know who will join us for next week. Once again, Steve Taylor is getting some guests in for the summer for us to break down and talk to about their Husker careers and so on and so forth. So we will look forward to that next week. Happy Hour coming up next year on 93.7 The Ticket.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com.
On the internet,